So, hey everyone, happy Friday. We're going to roll the intro in just a little bit and get officially started. But happy to be here with Sam. Michael Volov in the comments says first. Yeah. So, yeah, we're just talking about Bitrefill volumes and talking about ever since the Ionia company, including Dash Direct, right? Decided to stop doing crypto, doing business in crypto. That Bitrefill, hopefully, I'd hope to see a lot of an increased volume in Bitrefill. It's always been strange to see, like, there's a company called Coin Cards, I believe, and I can't for sure say, but the person who runs that must be I think he's very pro Monero, because they always have like Monero's like the highest payment option, or like right second to Bitcoin. And in the past, he always gave excuses to like disable Dash or whatever, like, oh, the node doesn't work, I'm going to just disable it instead of update your node like you do for the others. And he disabled it permanently like a couple of months ago. And then as soon as he heard about this, he's like, oh, to help the community, I'm re-enabling it here. And it's just like, you clearly don't like your Dash customers, but now you smell some extra money, and now you're like, I'm not meaning to talk smack about competitors here, but it's just something that came to mind.
No, but it's always
came
good.
to my
I support
mind.
it. I support it. You can talk shit about us as well. No worries.
Yeah. Well, at some point, I'm going to suggest suggest a Bitrefill feature, because I don't have any shit to talk, but there is something that I would like. It would be great to have an instant buy button that lets you skip adding to cart and then clicking to go to the checkout, and like that just goes. You just hit buy and it takes you like to the invoice screen to pay, because that would help when you're in a checkout and you select an option and just go. So I understand that sometimes you do shopping, you need a cart. You're like, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna get this, and I'm gonna go buy the whole thing. But when it's just like, I'm gonna buy the donut, something at wherever,
and directly go to the invoice.
Yes. So if this feature shows up in Bitrefill, it will be thanks to this podcast.
Okay. Notes taken.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we got a couple people watching. I think it's probably good to roll the intro graphic and officially get on with this. All right, and go. All right, so hey everyone, officially now, happy Friday. Welcome Digital Cash Rundown. I'm joined by the one and only Sam Kuritzén. How's it going, man?
Very good, very good. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Very nice.
Yeah,
to see
absolutely. So I know Sam from in person from the meat space, as I call it, the real world, and yeah, Sam's a good guy. And of course, when I'm on the podcast, I always want everyone fun to have on the podcast. Usually I give all my guests an NFT that lets them get into my Discord and stuff. And the offer's still open, but it's not on anything Bitcoin related. It's on what I would agree to call a shitcoin, which is Polygon. So
but we integrated Polygon not too long ago at Bitrefill. We had a great time last time I was in New Hampshire. You were very welcoming, showed me around, introduced me to the Free State group and all that. It was very appreciated. So I'm glad to be here and see you again. And also very, I don't know if you met about from my perspective, working at Bitrefill. It's always nice to meet you guys who actually do the opt-outs to the full extent and actually live on crypto fully to the best of your extent. And that's, I would say, our core group, or those that we on a more visionary level want to help out. So awesome.
Yeah, well, lucky for you, on this very channel soon, I'm still gathering interviews, but I decided to put out a call for people to for people anyone else who was trying to live on crypto. And so I already got a few interviews from a few other people around the world, including Finland and El Salvador and the U.S. so far, with some others cropping up. And so
Finland, someone living on crypto in Finland. I see.
That's a little challenging, and it's few options. But if he's
I
there,
live, I live in Sweden, and here it's really hard to use crypto in any way or form. To be honest, even just off-ramping to your own bank account is almost impossible in many cases. If you do it even the regular way, the way you're supposed to, it's still many of the big banks are blacklisted: Coinbase, Kraken, Binance, etc.
Wow.
It's
pretty crazy. You're not the first person I've heard that from. I know casually quite a few people from Sweden who've said, yeah, but in Sweden it doesn't work. And that always puzzles me, because the rest of Europe, especially around there, it seems like very easy. But then everyone says, no, Sweden.
We had a big banking scandal back 10 years back, maybe, when a few of our big banks got the government noticed that they had laundered a lot of money from Eastern Europe through our Swedish banks in the Balticum, in Estonia, Lithuania, and so forth. So after that, our banking sector in Sweden became super cautious. Everything that had the slightest risk involved in it got removed. There are KYC and compliance departments at these banks. Like most of my friends who studied law had their first job as a KYC analyst or compliance worker at the big banks. And I think this is the residue of that as well. Crypto is considered a big risk still. So,
yeah. I mean, it's kind of crazy, because the U.S. is pretty hostile towards crypto these days, as I'm sure it's in headlines. However, a lot of services still are U.S. based and available to U.S. citizens. It's pretty good. And in fact, there's a company here called Spritz Finance, or Spritz, which lets you pay all your bills with crypto. And it's like I've seen at least 5-6 different bill pay companies come and go over the years. And they always get shut down. And Spritz is the one. They're still there, and they just integrated Dash. They have Bitcoin as well and some other things. So it's fingers crossed. Maybe Sweden will have some sort of legal tender law or something like that, El Salvador style. Miracles can happen. Why?
We still have our own currency, at least. We're not part of the euro. We have some freedom, at least, when it comes to that.
Well, before we get with the news, the random last question, I guess, on that. So how easy do you have a lot of Swedish employees who want to be paid in crypto? Because I know Bitrefill has employees all over the world, and obviously I would want to 100% be paid in crypto. But also I have options. But if I lived in a country like Sweden where it was that difficult to use it, I might just have to get some crypto on the side as like a hobby and just be paid in fiat.
I cannot speak for the other colleagues. I don't really know. To try to do what you do in the US and Sweden, it would demand probably 10 times as much logistic planning than you are doing. And even, I don't think it would be possible to some extent. If anything, you would have to use Bitrefill as much as possible. We have a few products here in Sweden that opens up to quite a lot of different things, but it's hard. And then when it comes to getting paid in crypto, it's harder for us because we're a Swedish company with Swedish then colleagues or employees, and then a lot of local labor laws kick in, which makes it
of course
quite tough.
It's very challenging. Well, in before we the first story, just because I saw this crop up, I will put it up on the screen for there. 4 or maybe 5 minutes ago, there's a tweet from Bitrefill saying, Bitrefill enables you to live bankless. Enjoy the freedom of the crypto lifestyle. We're curious to know, what other tricks do you use to live bankless? Share your secrets with us. And when I'm done with the podcast, of course, I'll chime in there. The official the official Dash account appears to have chimed in there and said something nice. And the next comment though, and is pretty funny because it says, "So when is Zigamon or Sergey? When is he coming on Bankless HQ? It needs to happen." And I have to say, I have nothing wrong with the Bankless people, the people from the Bankless podcast. They're ETH people, and I largely don't use ETH that much, so I don't really care. But their podcast is Bankless. They won't have me on their podcast. And so I am angry.
They won't have you on.
Well, they didn't explicitly deny, but they just don't answer me. And I'm just trolling them endlessly. Every single comment. It's like, who should we have on next? And I say, maybe someone who's actually at Bankless.
Yeah, who are they talking to?
Yeah, no one who's Bankless. But so if you're watching this Bankless, which I know you're not, have Sergey on, even if you won't have me on. And you could even have me on, and I won't call ETH a shitcoin where Sergey might. So just so you know that. All right, let's start with the first story thing. So FedNow, which is a payment system run by the U.S. Federal Reserve, which is the U.S. central bank, just launched. And according to this announcement, FedNow service went live on July 20th, that's yesterday, 2023. It's available to depository institutions in the United States and enables individuals and businesses to send instant payments through their depository institution accounts. Service is flexible, neutral platform, blah, 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 blah. So basically, the updated, improved payment rails are here for the U.S. central bank, run by the central bank itself. Now, in the past, obviously, you had things like automated clearinghouse, ACH, those kinds of, this obviously SWIFT for international transactions and things like that, those systems. But this is operated by the central bank itself. So the central bank issues the money in the U.S., and now they have a new system for transferring the money between accounts, between institutions, and including, I did see earlier, there was a functionality for this thing that would basically allow it to block payments to certain customers if those customers had like an outstanding debt they hadn't paid, and it would basically allow them to not if they get paid, it's like, or they would allow them to not use their money for a purpose other than paying off the debt. So basically, it's like targeted financial censorship is a feature that was bragged about by this system. So what's your first reaction to the launch of the touted FedNow?
Well, when I read the article from the Fed talking about this, they were very clear saying it was not the CBDC, that it was not a new payment technology, but something else that wasn't really clear what it was. So what is it? Is it just a bookkeeping new system that they have? Is it their own ledger? Is it their own blockchain, or what is it? Or is it just a chat window where they say, I send you $1 and I send you $2, or what? I don't know. Has anyone tried it yet?
Well, I have not tried it, as everyone
knows. But anyone else out there in the world?
Their FAQ section here, and that was like the next link, but is the FedNow service replacing cash? Is it a central bank digital currency? Exactly. And it says no. The FedNow service is not related to a digital currency. The FedNow service is a payment service the Federal Reserve is making available for banks and credit unions to transfer funds for their customers. It is like other Federal Reserve payment services such as FedWire and FedACH. The FedNow service is neither a form of currency nor a step towards eliminating any form of payment, including cash. I don't believe that, but whatever. It says the Federal Reserve has made no decision on issuing a central bank digital currency and would only proceed with the issuance of a CBDC with an authorizing law. Testifying before the House Financial Services Committee in March 2023, Chair Powell said a CBDC is something we would certainly need congressional approval for.
Yeah. So what is this then?
This is where it gets
an Excel sheet for them.
Yes, this is where.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's my first thought.
What is a CBDC is the real thing that I think everyone can tell you conceptually, and no one can tell you concretely. It's sort of like when you get some people who are too, for example, new to Bitcoin. They try to describe what Bitcoin is, and they're just like, well, it's just digital energy and cyber hornets. It's a bunch of they give these like concepts, but it's like, but what is it? It's just like it's a digital decentralized money system. It's pretty clear. But same thing with the CBDC. What makes it a CBDC? Like what makes it bad is very clear. In that it's a new system for offers improved or enhanced, I should say, whatever the negative version of improved is, but still improved version, like censorship capabilities, and that's what people don't really like, and
some people love it.
Oh yeah,
that's
absolutely
the other side of it. Some people love it to be able to control it.
It's arguable that it is a CBDC or part of that because the dollar is issued by a central bank, and most dollar transactions are digital, as in not in paper, including these. And yeah, there you go. It's a currency that's issued by a central bank and is digitally sent, especially through modern payment rails, or the most modern payment rails. So it's arguable that it is a CBDC, but then when people think of a CBDC, they think of something different. And the question is, like, what exactly is that? Do you have a completely separate currency? You just like say the dollar's no more, and you just create a new thing from scratch that doesn't have all the inflation and the debt and all the other stuff? Like, is that like what at what point do we call it a CBDC? Like, for example, if they phased out cash entirely, and other than that, now would it qualify as one?
Then we're like, at least in Europe, many countries are already there. I would say cash is barely used. Sweden, it's hard to use cash. And Germany,
they love cash.
I was in Portugal recently, and like it was almost like in Sweden. Many places they didn't accept cash, only credit or debit cards. But yeah, what would you say? What is the CBDC then? In your definition, does it even have to involve a blockchain? Or can it be just a ledger of any sort that the government has control over?
So I could say that we're already there. But what I'd prefer to say, according to the concept of what is a CBDC, I believe it would have to do more with money where the money itself can be in some way programmed, and the user account can kind of be associated with it and programmed, like the user identity. So when you have a bank account, you have to go through KYC, and that's tied to your identity, but it's still it's still a separate account for each time you open a bank account. It just happens to be under your name, but it's not like a unified thing. And just sometimes they look up under your identification number and see all the accounts you have, but it's still loosely tied to you as a person. If it's like your one unified spending login, and that's how it goes through, and the currency itself is tied or whatever, or the ledger that the currency transacts with is associated with your personal identity, not just it's gone to accounts under your name, but it's actually that's when I would call it
your
CBDC.
Financial fingerprint, almost like a passport, but for financial stuff.
Yes.
To some extent, yeah.
That's when I would call it a CBDC, personally.
And the underlying technology doesn't necessarily, it's not totally irrelevant. It could be just a ledger kept up in or kept updated in Excel, for example. In like the most primitive, or it can be a advanced blockchain or whatever, or other ledger solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's a tricky one. Like if it's only like the core concepts, I guess, is that it's a money that is protected by the government and insured by the government, and also being digital. And in some way, as we've already touched upon, like we're already there in many cases.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's hard to be anonymous today, especially in
Yeah.
Sweden, for example, or many other countries in Europe. Um, yeah, it's possible to track everything if they like to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to define it, but I would guess it's digital currency that is managed and controlled by the government. If it's a blockchain or if it's other older financial trails, it's yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not that scared for in the short term. Sure, it can be horrific for our privacy and our freedoms. It can become very tyrannical, and Big Brother can get a lot of power from it. But in the long run, I guess whatever tool they're using out there in the real world, if it's a CBDC or cash or whatever, they will still do probably the same form of reckless monetary policy as we've already seen them do for like
Mm-hmm.
40, 50, 60 years or whatever, or since 1913, I guess, since Federal Reserve Act, probably even before that in some countries. But in the end, it's the policy, the ideas underlying how they handle their money will probably be the same, and the same really crappy ones, which in the end will not live for that long. But maybe a
Obviously.
generation or two might have some really ugly governments in front of them. Who knows?
Yeah, I mostly consider this a problem in the absence of crypto, but honestly, I think that I believe there's at least a couple dozen different CBDCs meant to go online in the next 7 years.
Mm.
But I personally believe if crypto never existed, that would be much later than that. That it just kind of crypto made them move faster.
Uh-huh.
But also, just the fact that right now, it's very hard to get rid of the entrenched system. But the fact that they're going to have to redo some kind of a system, and that there's already a vast amount of cryptocurrencies, including some like Bitcoin that are legal tender in some countries, that now they're coming after that. That's encouraging to me that they're not going to just have the monopoly on money like they do today. Depends on the country, of course. I mean, they
Uh-huh.
tried the naira in Nigeria,
Uh-huh.
and it had terrible adoption. Like they mandated it or something, and had
Ah,
like 0.4% of the population was using it. It was like a
okay.
really, and crypto is surging in Nigeria. It's not. So I'm not super worried. Also, I'm very aware of the financial censorship that happens under the current system right now.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And for example, if you do KYC in any kind of a way, each provider can tell like a horrendous amount of information about you right there. And then online purchases are all tracked, through Google and things like that. And Google has a data sharing agreement, or has had for many years, with MasterCard to kind of
Mhm.
combine sources from physical point of sale payments to online things to get an entire picture. So it's already been pretty bad. And I don't see it getting that much worse.
No, but now everything gets centralized. Like the
Yes, it's
government
worse.
doesn't have to have a partnership with Mastercard or Visa or MoneyGram or whatever. Now
Hmm.
they don't even need the banks to report to them. The banks with the CBDC, and if it lives out to its fullest form, then it's our current banks will be sort of redundant. Central banks can do all the business from their office. They don't
Hmm.
really need the banks to store or to lend or to do their business anymore. So we in Sweden, actually, I think Sweden was one of the first countries who started doing research on this, or our central bank, which also is the oldest central bank in the world. We were the first. We started we started Babylon.
Isn't it ironic then that
Hmm.
the best, in my opinion at least, the best company about moving crypto towards adoption as money is also based in Sweden? It's a great beautiful irony, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. True. No, we do a Pirate Bay as well. Also
Hmm.
Swedish.
Yeah,
The brand I'm the most proud of, definitely, coming from
yeah,
Sweden. IKEA, Spotify, they have nothing compared to what Pirate Bay has brought to the world. No, but what I was telling you is that our central bank started doing research on this 2016, I think it was 15. Was piloting the whole CBDC thing on a
hmm,
like serious level. Then they put it on hold and stopped the research in 2019. I think it was called e-krona.
hmm.
Um, yeah. So yeah, I'm not really sure what the reasoning was behind stopping the CBDC project here in Sweden. But yeah, like it's a danger, definitely. In some sense, the innovation of the Bitcoin and the decentralized blockchain might have opened up sort of a Pandora's box for people who want to take control and get insight into people's life to find a good tool to do that through. Um, but as I said, in the long run, which I want to believe is the more important aspect, I'm not afraid because
Yeah.
nothing is showing any signs of that they're going to slow down their credit expansions or
Hmm.
that now we will only have quantitative easing one and then that's it. No, it's QE infinite most probably till
Yeah.
shit hits the fan or people stops trusting it.
Yeah, that's one thing I think is very a hope maybe on this kind of thing is a lot of the more digital payment architecture is becoming a lot more similar to the old crypto architecture. So like
Yeah.
for example, my first the first year I used a mobile crypto wallet was 2013. And so I was scanning QR codes and all that kind of stuff. And then QR codes as a whole were not very popular, at least in the US, for any reason at that point. And then after that, they started adding some QR codes as a way to like scan a restaurant menu or a flyer or something, get to a website. And for me, it always like in my mind, first it was crypto. It was like this is a Bitcoin address, and then after that it was other things, and then now you actually have some bank payment apps that have you scan a QR code and to do payments and things like that. And so it's kind of like crypto started first, but so just a few days ago, I onboarded my barber, my hairdresser to take crypto, and she already had like Cash App in the phone, and downloading a crypto wallet was very intuitive for her because it was like, oh, okay, it's just the same as this, and so because of that, it just became I think it's made things a lot easier instead of when you have people that are tied to that plastic card, and then there's still people I know in the U.S., even people who are under 40 years old, who still write paper checks for some things. Now,
Oh,
they don't do that
I,
in grocery stores unless they're literally 95. But if they're not 90, like some people they but for larger things like to pay the rent or
mhm.
the mortgage or whatever, you still see people writing a paper check, and then they still have or they'll get paid in a paper check, and then they will like scan it with their phone and their banking app and get it put in, but it's still from a paper check to it's insane how archaic it is here. But so I do
Yeah,
think that the payment architecture,
yeah.
especially having things like Cash App and Venmo that have some manner of cryptocurrency in them, and I did verify this with a friend of mine who wanted to test things out. I did send some Bitcoin from like the Phoenix wallet and Lightning to his Cash App and then back out again and stuff just to verify that it was real, like that it wasn't just fake
And it
numbers in
wasn't,
their app.
or
Yeah, but
and
it was where it was
was
real.
real.
They
Did
had
you
some
get
limit.
a transaction ID? Could you trace it in the mempool and stuff, or?
No, well, it was all Lightning stuff, and that always makes it a little bit harder to trace.
Yeah, okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it verified it was real Bitcoin.
Good.
You know, so at least there's that. But so
Yeah.
back on that CBDC sort of idea, it's what I kind of consider as the easiest way to do a CBDC. So is to do like a stable coin on something like Ethereum, because USDC already has like blacklisted addresses that are built into the smart contract that don't let you send to, which is why it's more expensive than something like DAI to send, because it has to actually compute the censorship. You pay for the extra for the censorship when it's sending. And so for me, the easiest idea would literally just be, say in whatever country, like the US, say that stable coins are considered counterfeiting and they're illegal, and then the Federal Reserve just comes out with the FUSD or whatever stable coin on Ethereum and all its L2s, and just says this is the real stable coin. There you go. And then they can just program in restrictions, for example.
Why would you use Ethereum, you think?
Because it's programmable, in that they could program in restrictions and things like that. And
Yeah, but why not their own? Why not their own private chain?
I mean, they could. Obviously, it depends on which service gets kind of more adoption. So, for example, the ERC20, the EVM world is very booming right now, and a lot of cryptocurrencies use that standard and are sort of basically compatible with that, and so it makes sense. But that kind of leads into the next story here of Brazil's CBDC pilot contains code that can freeze or reduce funds, or devs claim. And so beyond all that awful stuff in there, if you scroll down, the digital real pilot is reportedly running on Hyperledger Besu, a privately operated EVM, Ethereum virtual machine, compatible blockchain. So, yes, it's their own thing, but it appears to be basically an Ethereum, maybe not a fork, but like an Ethereum variant or EVM compatible thing. And I could have sworn I heard of another central bank doing with maybe like Singapore or South Korea or something like that, also doing something with Ethereum for their CBDC. So this goes back to obviously the I've heard a lot of Bitcoin maximalists saying that Ethereum is fully co-opted by the state, and that Ethereum is going to be used for the CBDCs to enslave us all. And this kind of gives it pushes a little evidence in that, or I wouldn't say, I don't know if evidence, but it advances an argument in that direction.
Yeah, sure, but nothing necessarily against Ethereum. More so the reality that Ethereum is more versatile. You're able to do much more things than on on Bitcoin, and then more opportunities are to be found, and more opportunities that also can please governance. So yeah, I don't see it as necessarily anything weird in it, or something that necessarily is bad about Ethereum in that matter. Like whoever can gain benefits from using a system, they will use it. Some systems or protocols are better than others to fulfill certain needs. It's almost similar to say that that Bitcoin is bad because criminals used Bitcoin back in the days, or that people launder money through. It doesn't necessarily make Bitcoin itself a bad thing, but like actors who want to find new opportunities, they look for new technologies to do their stuff even more efficiently, and yeah, here we are.
Yeah, of course. And that kind of sort of brings back another conversation. I forget who I had it with, but about I believe somewhere could have been Florida, but I don't remember. Some state government was considering a bill to put part of the government's balance sheet in Bitcoin. rather than USD. And I was kind of left thinking, is this a good thing or not? Because on the one hand, yay, crypto everywhere, it's good. On the other hand, I'd rather have the government be the last to have any, and have the people have more first. And also, because we are talking about still volatile financial instruments, it's an easy way to somehow waste even more taxpayer money, right? Like we now have to collect double the taxes because our treasury was all denominated in Bitcoin and there was a dip, and we just choose that we need to spend it right now, so we're going to sell it all at a big loss, and then there you go. And then we need more taxes.
And people get even more upset and trust them even less. Yeah, and it's even easier for them with the CBDC in general to just push a button to print even more money or to censor someone. It's when it gets so much easier to be powerful and take mandates and do stuff for the government. Like, I assume they will be more aggressive and they will start to tread on even more people and make even more people upset and unhappy, which then maybe can boost the alternative roads even more. But maybe a bit far-fetched, but it's still, there is a chance that if they get more or possibility to do even more powerful things and even take more mandates, then it can even, the road to serfdom goes even quicker, and then people look for alternatives quicker, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so I guess you're in the camp of let's keep government away from the good ones as long as we can.
Let's keep the government away from whatever life there is there out in the universe.
Yes. Of course.
Is my what do you mean? Keep government away
from possessing crypto, like having Bitcoin specifically. Like they should be the last to have it, kind of.
It's not my. I don't know if I have any opinions necessarily on that. To be honest, it's like, sure, I would very much like if the government could stay out of it, but they won't. In the end, I see one scenario where it becomes like a how do you say it? Not cat and mouse game, but where one central bank starts printing money to buy crypto, to buy Bitcoin or ETH, and then the other government also starts printing money to buy even more Bitcoin and stuff. So in the end, everyone just hyperinflates the currency to be able to be in the race to buy cheap Bitcoin before the price has adjusted to all hyperinflated fiats. So in that sense, that would definitely lead to adoption. And fortunately enough, it demands a lot of consensus in the network to push for changes. So if Russia has 20%, US has 20%, China has 20%, or whatever, like extreme scenario where Bitcoin is mostly divided between governments, which by now seems like quite like a hard task to accomplish for them. That's good. Then we're back to what gold has been for many thousands of years. No one were in charge of gold, but gold were in charge of all the governments. Like all governments were limited to their gold possessions.
Although there's some, from my historical recollection, again, I haven't studied things other than in a very long time. Many countries were on a silver standard, and when there was the Great Depression in the U.S. and other gold standard countries got similarly hit, whereas the silver standard countries were not necessarily hit in the same way. I think that was a Mises Institute talk I was at one time, a long time ago.
Okay. Do you know which countries?
No, I think China might have been one of the silver standard standard bearers, I should say. And so, but yeah, just definitely the idea of it would be a severely limiting factor for the power of one nation to have something kind of running on everything. Although it seems like Michael Saylor is a big fan of the USD, and he wants it on the Bitcoin thing. So there's this 41-second clip that I'm just gonna play real quick that people can hear, even though you won't be able to hear in real time, of him talking about that kind of stuff.
There are two things that should succeed and grow: the U.S. dollar. If you live in the United States and you believe in Western values and freedom and justice, right, and Western law and the progressive movement, you want the U.S. dollar to grow. And instead of saying, well, the dollar is like a problem to save in, forget about that. Just point out that if you live in Africa and Asia, you would give your left arm to trade in dollars, right? So the dollar should expand on lightning rails, and Bitcoin should expand, and they go together, and we all win. We all win, right? The world's a better place.
Yeah, so basically, he said the dollar should expand around the world. It should expand on Bitcoin and Lightning rails, and then we all win if the dollar wins. Yeah, he slipped in there the good point, which I would call the almost like the Bitrefill point about that if you're in some developing country, you cut off your left arm to get some dollars. Like, it's so much better than as a tool than what they have. But yeah, it's still kind of interesting to see that like direct, promotion of the dollar by one of the biggest figures, or one of the most prominent figures in the whole crypto world, or in the whole Bitcoin world specifically. So, yeah, I don't know.
No, it's weird. Like when he rose to become famous in the Bitcoin world, I don't know, 3-4 years ago maybe. He was very anti-dollar.
Yeah.
This was the dollar is this he always talked in thermodynamics, right? Energy in, energy out, etc. And how the dollar was this very inefficient system in terms of thermodynamics. But now it's a good thing, apparently. I don't know what's happened.
Yeah.
What's your take? Do you have a...
I'm not exactly sure what I think, other than I think that this, like, there's no popular crypto figure, no like famous one that I hold in high regard, I should say. I don't like any of them. I think that part of being kind of famous in that world is a little, you're required to be a little bit, after your own means, after your own ends kind of thing. It seems like Saylor does have he was a very big crypto critic as a whole. Bitcoin's nothing, is terrible. And then he got into it later. Now, obviously people change their minds. But it seems to have been very shrewd as far as he wants to profit from this thing. And so he talks about how it's great. He talks about how everything that isn't Bitcoin is great without really, and there's arguments for all that, but there's nuanced arguments about, the centralization of this and blah, 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 network effects that, and all that kind of stuff. But it seems like a very just lazy dismissal of everything else, and talked a lot about just don't spend it, just buy it. And then he also demonstrated, or you can send it easily on Lightning, but that kind of contradicts what he said earlier. And then, of course, dollar's terrible, fiat's terrible, Bitcoin laser eyes, hornets, all this kind of stuff. And then he's like, no, the dollar should exist, and it's going to run on Lightning rails, and you should want the dollar to succeed. And he's like, I don't take anything. I guess the nicest thing I should say about this individual is I don't take anything that he says as at face value that's what he actually believes.
No.
I think he's just saying things, and it's clear, the agenda is clear, that he thinks that Bitcoin will make him and his better off, and he wants to promote Bitcoin because he wants it to increase, especially increase in price in fiat valuation for that purpose. And so it's kind of like a mutual alignment of interests to a certain extent, but maybe an opportunist one.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Yeah, we find quite a lot of them, I would say, in this in this industry, specifically, definitely. Opportunities are everywhere here, especially when you go out in the media channels and look. YouTube influencers or people in the press. Because there is always if you're about to get into Bitcoin and you want to make yourself wealthy and make Bitcoin succeed, like it also lies in Bitcoin to some extent to promote it, to get people around you to also understand it, get involved and invest in it, and also have the same mentality to use it to a greater extent if it's for purposes or purchases or savings or trading or whatever. Just use it. The more it's used, the more valuable it will get, and the network effects will be even stronger. So it's hard to determine if it's sincere or not. In the end, though, not taking into his comments about the dollar on Lightning, but just in general, promoting Bitcoin in almost a religious way to the masses, which I'm not innocent of either. But it's hard to tell. In the end, I would say it benefits the whole industry in general if it's done according to core aspects or principles to some extent. Even though it's cheesy or plastic persona or whatever you see, it's still like people hear it, people start thinking, and then people joins as well along the way. But yeah, promoting. Now I listened to it. I didn't hear now, but I listened before now, an hour ago. Is he saying himself that he wanted to see the dollar on Lightning, or is it that there are people out there that would like it, and it would be good if we can take it on the dollar, or on the Lightning dollar to the Lightning?
The Lightning thing was a kind of a throwaway comment on when he was talking about the dollar. The whole thing was about the dollar and how the dollar's great, and we all benefit from the dollar doing well. We, especially if we believe in the U.S. and the U.S. values and all this, we want the dollar to do well. So he was talking about we, meaning him and other people, especially Americans, but basically the implication was the world. It is an objective benefit for the world, at least the free world or whatever you want to call it, to see the dollar do very well. And we have an interest in this. And then he just threw a comment on Lightning rails and Bitcoin too, and blah blah blah, as an example of. To me, it sounded like an example of what he thought would be like how it would do well. But not necessarily that he'd advocate for that specifically, or not necessarily that it needed to be involved with Bitcoin at all. Just that the dollar should do well.
What does it mean with dollar? Would you say? Is it that U.S. has the power of the world reserve currency, or is it just in particular the U.S. dollar issued by the Fed, even though 10 other countries might be further or more evolved in 10, 20 years? Or is it more what the dollar today signifies or symbolizes?
It seemed to be referred to the dollar as a whole, meaning, maybe not necessarily like the little piece of paper that you sent, but like the dollar standard, right? The global standard of the dollar and the U.S. hegemony that comes with that. That seemed to be the implication.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was my impression as well. That dollar was more so the more word of symbolism for the word superpower, U.S. Which of
Yeah,
course is
absolutely.
like a big part of it is that most international trade is done in dollars, and central banks around the world have large reserves of dollars, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, yeah, I don't know. CBDCs, man. It's to be honest, I'm not that pessimistic about it. Even if it comes, even if it takes over, even if the European Union, the US, they do it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
sure, it would be maybe tougher to live your day-to-day life today, but your kids, your grandkids might get even greater freedoms when the government has really, like when their pants are fully pulled down, and
Yeah.
the population has been able to see what they actually would do if they had this power that the CBDC would entail to have.
Yeah, I definitely think this would be incredibly dystopian if this was like 2007 or 8 and
Yeah.
there was no Bitcoin yet. And then this was just going to happen and be like, "Oh no, it's over." It's like I'd be holding gold bars next to Peter's Schiff trying to shave off a little for my coffee and like, which I did try to do before I knew Bitcoin existed. I tried to get one of his gold-backed debit cards, but now life is easier. But
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
we would definitely be like that. The thing is, I think that first of all, with crypto side by side with the CBDC, now it becomes a lot easier to compare and be like, and it's not like, well, there's the banking system, and then there's this weird unfamiliar thing. It's like, well, now you have two weird unfamiliar things, but this one doesn't let you buy what you want and spies on you, and this one you can do whatever you want with, and this one goes down in value, and this one sometimes goes down, but mostly goes up. It's an easier kind of transition tool.
Yeah.
Although, also, I should say probably a big reason why the dollar has lasted so long is because, I mean, there's a million different reasons. I'm sure, like the petrodollar, all that kind of stuff. But I think that one reason is because of the gold standard, because it was backed by gold for so long, and then after the 1930s, still kind of had some element to that. And then even though, after the 1970s when there's nothing resembling a gold standard anymore, there's still gold reserves in Fort Knox in the US, and like, oh, there's still talk about gold. It's still it's still the same dollar, even though it's been gutted, even though the insides have just been taken out. And so I think that when you start a new currency, you don't have that built up generational trust,
But it's the same brand still. It's still the same organization behind it and stuff. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure. But in the US, I'm more optimistic than compared to here in Sweden, for example. Here, we trust our government to I think, one of the highest possible degrees in the world at the moment. Compared to any other country, I think Sweden, maybe not even Norway or Finland have as high trust to their own governments as Sweden. Our government has never turned tyrannical on us compared to what other governments has done throughout the world. We've been very safe in that sense. A relatively very well-behaved government. Of course, not flawless, but we've been treated quite well as individuals in Sweden throughout history. That has, in the end, created this very naive and almost divine trust for government as an institution and entity here. We trust it blindly, or a lot of people do. We have one of the highest voting participation rates in the world. And this is where I think also CBDCs contra crypto, where there will be a division between countries where they've had seen previously governments being tyrannical. They have experienced the government being a really fucked up entity that just destroys their lives and not helps them. Compared to other countries where we've been we've been allowed to live quite freely from our governments. So CBDCs in countries where they don't trust the government in its core, like I would say quite a big parts of the world at the moment, even in Europe, their CBDCs will definitely have a harder time than here in Sweden. Here in Sweden, I think people will just change tracks immediately. I just, yes, Daddy, I'll go on to this new e-krona that you tell me to use without questioning it, without doing much, because we've never experienced the government doing much bad stuff. Compared to like Germany. Germany, they use a lot of cash. They don't trust the government. They wanna, even though it's as advanced and whatever as Sweden, maybe even more in many regards, they still have this grassroots distrust from government. As you guys do in the US, you even wrote it down on paper very clearly in 1776 how much you don't trust the government. We've never had to do that.
Yeah. On a kind of a slightly, different note on that, it's kind of interesting how that works, because I feel like the U.S. trust in government is also, in some cases, relatively high, and definitely lower than a lot of, for example, Nordic countries, but higher than in places like Mexico. And because for the most part, the U.S. government, up until, I would say, certain parts of this century, at least for domestic citizens, has been very reasonable. Obviously, there's some other, things got a little bit scary these days, but and obviously, if you live outside of the U.S. and have to dodge drone bombs, that's a very different level of trust in the U.S. government. But obviously, it's for that. But I grew up in the north of Mexico, and I remember just no one trusted the government at all. Now, the difference, though, is the people did not trust the government and were very, I guess, cynical and apathetic about their prospects to improve their situation of governance. As in, they would vote for candidates who they knew were going to be corrupt and steal money and things like that. But they said, well, this guy already has money. He's not going to be as greedy as this other guy, so he's going to steal less. It's like stealing is a given, but they'd vote for the one who'd steal less. And obviously, I think that's a very healthy perspective to have on, the situation you're in. But I don't think it's a healthy mental state to think to just take oppression and theft and all these kinds of things as a fact of life. That then you, at least, I do think that the majority, probably the clear majority, but the majority of the U.S., I would think, believes that they're one or two elections away from having the perfect ideal governance system. They're dissatisfied, but if they get the right person in power, not even to redo the system, but they just, their people win, they change a few things, and then everything's a utopia. Whereas I don't think the average Mexican thinks that at all. And I think that maybe the average Swede thinks that's where it is already.
Yeah, we lower ourselves up here. But what do you mean? That in Mexico it's more so distrust to the core structure of what a government is than the specific people in power?
Yes, but also, or maybe, yes, also a distrust or a disbelief in the ability to have a good, non-corrupt government.
Yeah. I've seen some similarities from people in Eastern Europe or former Soviet Union. People I met from there, they don't trust. I've noticed a much bigger distrust towards government, and not only the current politicians, but the core structure of a government, that form of organization that is built on coercion and force, and not built on voluntary interactions between human beings. They've not necessarily put those words on it, but it's still, they don't have necessarily the idea. It's not the idea that we just have to wait for the next election. It's coming in 2 years, then everything will be fine. It's more so a underlying distrust of the structure in itself, the form of organization, and I get very happy. I love it when I hear it. And you guys, you built a nation on this.
Yeah, of
You
course.
did.
The
3% tax on tea. And you guys
Yeah.
were like,
Well, now
fuck off.
40% tax now or more.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
it's pretty
This
crazy.
is
It's
3%, and you did a fucking revolution for it. I love
also the crypto thing has really given rise to digital nomadism the way nothing else has, because the internet and a reliable Wi-Fi connection, a laptop you can do a career from, has really been most of that. I would say 90%, but a good 10% is I don't have to worry about getting banks that support every country I'm in. I can use international currency, i.e. crypto, and I don't have to, my jurisdiction, and I can also get paid in whatever. And as a result of that, I think that a lot of people are starting to see disadvantages of having a U.S. passport, because the U.S. is only one of, I believe, only 2 countries that taxes non-residents. So if you live in a different country, you're supposed to pay the U.S. federal government still, even if you earn all, like if you're an expat living in Germany, and you're supposed to pay if there's whatever the difference is in tax rates. So like, let's assume that you pay 40% of your, I'm sure it's probably worse in Germany than in the US maybe, but let's just assume, say Portugal, you pay like a 20% tax rate, but let's just assume, I don't know what it is. And then you pay like a 40% in the US. You'd still have to pay 40%, just 20% to Portugal and 20% to the country you don't even live in anymore. And so I think people kind of I think that people are starting to see, like, wide is my base citizenship? Like, what do I even do? What do I need this for? Some people have announced, and yeah, it's pretty interesting. But yeah, so it's probably a good time to start wrapping this whole thing up. This is what at the time that I like to call shill-o'clock. So you check the watch. Oh, there it is. It's shill-o'clock already. So what would you like to, like, anything you'd like to promote, whether where to follow you on social media? You use Bitrefill, I'm sure that's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm no not an active social media player. I don't actually even have Twitter. It's not that I've had Twitter, used it a lot, and then left it. I just never gotten into it. No, so yeah, Bitrefill is everything I want to mention. So our purpose, our mission, what we do is to serve people like you, Joel, to enable people who actually want to live bankless, want to live on crypto. So it's only crypto. If you want to live bankless with gold, Bitrefill cannot help you. I'm sorry. But if you're using crypto, definitely, yeah, Bitrefill is one of the best service providers for that. So yeah, we sell gift cards where we enable people to easily off-ramp from crypto to reach the consumer market. And at the moment, gift cards is the best vehicle that we've found and worked with. So yeah, going seamlessly from Bitcoin, ETH, or any of the different Li-Fi tokens you can use on Li-Fi, or Tether, and USDC and similar. You can use that, buy stuff on Amazon and similar things. So if you want to use your crypto, not only hodl and sit and wait for the tomorrow where you will retire and sit on the beach with a pina colada in hand, you actually want to do something with your crypto, then come. Bitrefill has everything in it.
Yeah, definitely. It's basic, and I should mention, because there are some services that are very effective at letting you live on crypto, but they also require KYC for a lot of things. And as far as I know, there's not a single product other than BitPay, or Bill Pay, I should say, on Bitrefill that actually requires KYC. Maybe some limits might require, but other than that,
Exactly.
and you don't need an account either, from my understanding, right?
No. So within certain daily limits, just regular day-to-day transactions you do in the supermarket or refueling your car or similar. It can be done without an account and without KYC. Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
Exactly.
also, as of not too long ago, I believe, there's an APK file version for Bitrefill for people who are even more insane than just the basic I want to live on crypto, but it's like also I don't want my phone to be spying on me, so I have to make my life as hard as absolutely possible until my wife hates me. So that's
She still loves you, or?
yeah. I mean, listen,
Yeah.
it's like that's what you call
It
true
works.
true scarcity, right? Like, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, what should be said like if you really love someone, try to live all in crypto with de-googled phones. If they leave you, they were never meant to be there to begin with. But
That's the
yeah,
ultimate stress test. Live in
yes.
crypto and de-Google yourself. No,
Hmm.
yeah. We have an APK file. You've been our lab rat.
Hmm.
We're still working on it. We haven't released it publicly yet, but it's definitely possible to get a hold of. Um, yeah. No, no. Other than that, I have probably nothing more to chill. I think. No, I'm very glad to be here. It was super fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. Well, you're welcome back on
Yeah.
anytime. It was a good
Thank you.
chat. Uh, everyone, let us know in the comments if you'd like to have Sam back on. Um, I might have, I might try to get Sergey on for the regular, more free form news show because every time I've talked to him before, it's been like business. It's been like, oh, new thing Bitrefill did, or like interview, and
Mm,
like it's been
mm,
more. It's not been the live show, but maybe at
yeah.
some point I should have Sergey on, and then have the entire Bitrefill office just come in and start like trolling him in the comments, and then I have to go put that on the screen and be like, Sam says, why are you a shitcoin scammer trying to get everyone to live on Tether on Tron? Why are you?
Yeah. Please. That's I forgot to chill Tether on Tron and Li-Fi. It's amazing
Yeah,
stuff.
Justin is your son. Just kidding. Okay. All right.
Hmm.
Enough trolling. Thanks everyone for watching. Next week, I'm not doing a podcast because the same day, same Friday, I'm going to be on a plane to Barcelona. I'm going to ZCon 4, the first of them that I've been to, but the fourth one apparently. So I'll be doing all kinds of cool stuff there. But the following week, so 2 weeks from today, I'll be back to the regular news show, probably with a Zcash podcast right after this, so I get to recap the whole thing. But yeah, in the meantime, go use Bitrefill. If you don't, you're an idiot. So I don't want idiots watching this channel, so unsubscribe.
No,
If
no,
you don't use
no
it, just
idiots.
get maybe that's good.
Customers are not idiots, and
Yes,
non-customers are not idiots either. We love everyone.
yes, that's the diplomatic way of saying
Yeah, yeah,
things.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
definitely check out Bitrefill because it works in a very big part of the world. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things that work in different parts.
Wherever gift cards is established
Hmm.
infrastructure and business, Bitrefill is present. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everyone. Have a great weekend. Thanks again for being on, Sam. It's got to be
Thank
late
you.
there, so we'll let you get on with your night. And bye, everyone. I'll see you around.